Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith, Pennsylvania editor for the Center Square. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania reporter, Anthony Hennon. This week, lawmakers heard from childcare providers who say the crisis in their industry won't be solved by an influx of cash alone. Like many parts of the economy, costs are soaring and labor is in short supply, leaving many going without necessary services. If parents can't access childcare, they can't go to work, and our economy shrinks. So, Anthony, will you go deeper into the reasons behind why options are dwindling for families?
Yeah, so I think one option here is not a big surprise, simply because when COVID hit and you had a lot of different shutdowns and people leaving the economy, one of the issues here was childcare centers across the Commonwealth shut down. Since the pandemic, advocates estimate that about 2,000 childcare centers just closed their doors. When you look at now, there's been new ones that have opened up, but we still have had a net loss of about 600 childcare centers across the Commonwealth. And what's more is we're not quite sure where these opened up in terms of, say, one closes outside Pittsburgh, another one that opens isn't necessarily taking that same spot. So there's probably still a lot of areas that are underserved with childcare options. So yeah, I don't think that's exactly revelatory to anyone. Neither is the low pay in this sector. When you're looking at a lot of these places, you can either work in a high stress environment like childcare, or you can go somewhere like a fast food place or Wawa or something like that, make more money and have less stress. So we've seen an exodus of childcare workers across the state, which has made it harder for childcare providers to keep their doors open or actually operate at full capacity. We see a long list of, I think statewide, it's something about 30,000 or so children are on wait lists to get into childcare centers, but we have the capacity. We just don't have the staff. There were a number of testifiers at the House hearing on Wednesday who testified, they have open spaces. They could take 100 more children in for the childcare center. They just don't have the staff to do it. What's surprising, though, is there's roadblocks to hiring more staff because there's a lot of these educational requirements. Rather than, say a mom whose kids are now off of school and she doesn't necessarily need to focus as much on taking care of her own children. If she, she's had years of experience raising kids, but due to state regulations, she can't just walk into a childcare center and take a job if she doesn't have the right, bachelor's degree or qualifications like that. And so, you can work as an aide, but you can't actually work in a larger role or take a leadership position. So that's been a problem we've heard from some childcare advocates of they have great workers and their moms are great workers and a lot of people who have their credentials already, but they can't actually hire them or promote them.
So it seems like a very obvious solution here, but, can you talk a little bit more about the educational requirements for some of the leadership positions? I know that the actual workers themselves and aides get paid very little in comparison to the amount of work that is asked of them, but it sounds like you're talking about rather advanced degrees for a profession that doesn't have the salary to match.
Yes, exactly. I mean, when you're looking at professional job openings, with those requirements, early childhood care has the lowest pay scale, essentially. And it's one of the big problems of why they can't hire people in. But this seems like a case where we're substituting credentials as a proxy for skills or for safety or other qualifications. Where, you basically, if you don't have an education degree, then you're not necessarily, the state does not see you as qualified to run a full classroom or, take a higher up position. You can be an aide or something like that, but those positions do not pay well. So, ideally, advocates would like to see state regulations get reworked, and you can substitute, the experience of having children and caring for them, or volunteering, or something like that, rather than saying you need to have this degree to take this job. I think that would also line up with some things we've heard from Governor Josh Shapiro on trying to make sure we are focused on skills rather than credentials. But so far, that has not yet filtered down to early childhood education and these requirements that a lot of these child care centers have, unfortunately.
Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Anthony Hennon, this is Kristen Smith. Please subscribe and thanks for listening.
Freedom and liberty are important to all of us. If you're looking for civil, intellectual conversations with those shaping the future of freedom, try the Future of Freedom podcast with me, Scott Bertram. We speak with leaders across the country in the greater conservative and libertarian movements. In-depth conversations about where the next intellectual battles will happen across the country. It's the Future of Freedom podcast. Find it at americastalking.com or wherever you get your podcasts.